Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cup Chat. We are 7.3 seconds, 7 minutes and 3 seconds late because we were having technical difficulties. Thankfully, we have technology that can bring us all together, but sometimes it doesn't always want to cooperate. So today on Cup Chat, we are talking all about hawks. And joining me today is Dr. Maureen Frank, our wildlife extension specialist here at Texas A&M, and Bryan Calk, our favorite and the original Birding with Extension guide, who guides for Learn to Bird, as well as our feature program, Birding the Border, and is going to be our guide on our new advanced youth camp, Rio Diablo Birding Camp based here out of Del Rio. We will be traveling all over West Texas later, end of May in 2021. So if you're interested in any of our other programs, make sure you go to our website and check those out. But today we're talking all about hawks. And, Maureen, why today? Why did y'all decide to pick hawks today? Let's talk.
Well,
it's 7:30 in the morning. We could talk about a lot of other good stuff.
And that's funny. That's kind of an interesting point as far as we normally hold these early in the morning for a couple of reasons. But one is that birders tend to get up early because that's the best time to see birds. But when we're talking about hawks, that's not actually really true. That you can definitely see them early in the morning, but hawk migration depends a lot on how they're going to be, moving around. And in some places, you kind of have to wait for it to get warmer for them to like really see them soaring on those thermals. And not that you can't see them in the morning, but I feel like it's not as critical to get out early as it is for some of our other songbirds. So maybe, sorry, Em, we should have held like a 12:30 in the afternoon.
I would have appreciated that because we all know that I'm not a morning person.
But the bottom line for why to talk about hawks this time of year is that it's fall migration. And with a lot of our bird species, I think we've talked about this on here before, fall migration is not overall as spectacular as spring migration, mostly because obviously you have the same, the same birds that
boys and foods and girls
moving, right? But it's not happening all at once. Like in spring, it's kind of, you take all those species moving around and you compress it into the short period of time. And in fall, we have some species that have been migrating since late July or early August. So there's some species that have been migrating since like what we would still consider the summer. And then some species still aren't going to migrate until December. So it's this big, long time period over which we spread migration. But for hawks, they're such a big, charismatic species that are easy to see, and they take advantage of things like fronts that they can kind of ride down, which a lot of bird species do that as well. But their hawk migration is just a little more, I feel like a little more spectacular than some of our other birds that we get to see, because you can really see large numbers of them going all at once, which is pretty cool.
So you talk about fall migration being this long period of time, and of course that can span even with hawks over a long period of time. But when should we be looking in South Texas, Bryan? When are we needing to get our binoculars out and really start watching for our hawks as they migrate south through Texas?
Sure. So in your region, Southwest Texas, we generally start seeing birds moving in September, all the way through about November. And then by then we're mostly set up with winter resident species. But further east, where you have species like swallow-tailed kites and Mississippi kites, they migrate as early as August. So really we're already in the thick of it.
Well, and that's super true. I thought I get lots of miles on the road, as Bryan and Maureen know, but I was driving yesterday and I'm actually getting on the road again today and then on the road again tomorrow. And just driving, I was noticing how many more hawks I got to see. So you're so right that we are in the thick of it. In Texas, you can see over 20 species of hawks through migration, some that live here, some that don't. Maureen, what are some identification tips that we need to be utilizing as we are watching out for those hawks?
Yeah, so hawks are a good thing to practice some of the, when we had some of the guides on talking about like tips for beginners, hawks are a good thing to practice using some of those less, like the things that don't jump into your mind right away, like size and shape. because a lot of times you see a colorful, songbird and you're like, oh, I noticed the colors on it, right? But we talked about how it's really important to pay attention to the size and the shape of that bird as well. Well, with hawks, a lot of times they're going to be soaring like way far away. And so you can't see what color they are sometimes, or if the light is hitting them a certain way. Lots of them have distinctive patterns like on the underside of their wings, but you're just probably not going to rely on that as much as you would for a bird that you're looking at, like at a feeder or in your yard a little more up close. And so it's really important to look at things like size and shape. And some of the things that are important to focus on are the shape of the wings. So some of them are going to be more rounded, some of them are going to be pointier, the shape and the size of the head and the tail relative to the rest of the body. So in some birds, you're just going to kind of compare, how long are the wings compared to the body, or how long is the tail compared to the length of the body. So it's really a lot more about those size and shape characteristics than it is about, color or patterns. But you can see those as well. Then there's certain species that you will key in, like harriers. Northern harriers are one that we often see this time of year kind of skimming over agricultural fields, and they have a nice white patch on their rump that makes them pretty easy to identify, along with the fact that behavior comes in as well. Because we think about hawks soaring up high, harriers often cruise really low over the fields. And so that's kind of another distinguishing characteristic for them.
So let's talk really quick about some common species. If there were 5 hawk species here in Southwest Texas that birders probably needed to know, what are some of those top 3 or top 5 hawk species that we need that birders should get familiar with, those things that we talked about, like size, shape, and some of the different